Secretary.
Hi there, this video was live.
And is now Deputy
Allegations, Dominic Rubb.
Morning to you, Mr. Rubb.
Politics, UK. Or when should we do? Like this video, please have thumbs up.
What we know. So this is a story that's
See the time down there. It is the
late last night.
5th of July 2022.
When Chris Pincher was a minister at the Foreign Office a couple of years ago, that a complaint was made about inappropriate behaviour. Now, you were Foreign Secretary at the time. You were therefore his boss. What do you remember about that complaint?
Yes, a complaint was made by an individual. I immediately discussed it with the Permanent Secretary, that's the senior civil servant in the Foreign Office, and we agreed that it should be properly, independently investigated, reviewed by him at the first instance to decide whether a formal process of disciplinary action, for example, should take place, and that he should do that without fear or favour, but report back to me with the outcome. He did so. It didn't, he found, independently warrant disciplinary action of any description, but it was inappropriate, and he and I spoke to Chris Pincher in no uncertain terms. It's worth also saying that the individual who made the complaint did not want any formal action taken. Now, I still wasn't entirely comfortable just to rest there, because I think it is so important that people working with ministers and others in positions of authority have got the confidence to come forward. So I asked for some reassurance that we had done the right thing by referring the matter to the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team, and they agreed, for example, under the Ministerial Code, that the inappropriate action did not warrant formal action or a formal process, and that's where the matter was left.
But it was confirmed through that process involving the Cabinet Office that there had been inappropriate behaviour by Chris Pincher.
Correct. I don't think anyone disputed that that it was inappropriate what took place, but it didn't trip the wire or meet the threshold for any formal action, either under the Foreign Office's complaints or disciplinary process, or indeed under the Ministerial Code at the Cabinet Office level.
Okay.
So you knew about this. Did the Prime Minister know?
Well, I reported it to the Chief Whip, which is, I think, the right thing to do in relation to a complaint that's been made but has not proceeded to formal disciplinary proceedings or action of any sort. I don't know what the Prime Minister would have been told precisely at the time, but I think that was the right thing to do to make sure that, if you like, the central point who would receive and be made aware of those kind of issues or complaints had the full picture, even though, as I said, formal disciplinary action was not taken.
So let's fast forward to February of this year, and you hear that Chris Pincher is going to be made a Deputy Chief Whip in the party, and you know about this previous incident that was investigated when you were his boss. Did you intervene at that point and go to the Prime Minister and say, just so you're aware, this happened, maybe not a great idea?
Well, first of all, just to be clear, I want to be very careful about the words being used. In 2019, a complaint was made, but no formal disciplinary action was taken, and no formal process to initiate disciplinary action was taken. And that was the view of the Civil Service and the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team. In relation to the 2019, I think no, I didn't go anew. I didn't need to. I'd already reported it to the Chief Whip, and of course this was something that hadn't warranted a formal disciplinary process. But of course the Prime Minister will looked at this very carefully, and we should say that the process that we rely on, the assurance that we rely on, again stems from the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team, and there was no objection, is my understanding, from them about the appointment of Chris Pincher.
So you didn't talk to the Prime Minister or anybody about that appointment. Do you wish now you had?
No, I don't think that I would have done anything differently, because, as I said, whilst the behaviour was inappropriate and I regarded it as below the standards of professionalism, it wasn't something that tripped the wire to require formal disciplinary action, either under the normal disciplinary action you'd expect in any professional context,
Okay.
or under the particular requirements of the Ministerial Code, which is for the Cabinet Office to police, if you like, and those assessments were independently done at Civil Service, Permanent Secretary level, and the Propriety and Ethics team in the Cabinet Office. and I reported it back to the Chief Whip. If anything, and look, these are all perfectly reasonable questions, I wanted to make sure we did everything by the book. The reference to the Cabinet Office was at my behest, because I wanted that double level of assurance, and it was decided independently that there was no case for taking formal disciplinary action or anything beyond that.
But the job of Deputy Chief Whip, the job that Chris Pincher was given, is a job which isn't just about party discipline and votes and the way MPs go through the
He's
law.
Chief Whip.
It's about safeguarding, isn't it? It's about well-being. There's a pastoral responsibility in that job, and you knew this was somebody who'd found to have behaved inappropriately, and so therefore I'm surprised that maybe you didn't think it was your responsibility just to have even a quiet word with the Prime Minister or Number 10 and say, you're putting somebody into a job who we found to have done this and behaved in this way.
I think the right thing to do is to trust in the processes as long as they're rigorous enough. The Prime Minister would have had a conversation with all the relevant people about propriety. That happens when any minister is appointed. And as I said, the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team are the guardians of this, and they raised no objection. I don't think, and actually I would say I don't think it's right for me to go beyond that when I fed in via the Chief Whip, via the Cabinet Office, the approach that we'd taken in 2019, and of course that is in relation to something that, as I said, had not tripped the wire in terms of formal action being taken.
You're probably not aware of this because it's only happened in the last couple of minutes, but Simon MacDonald, who was a senior civil servant at the Foreign Office, I guess you worked closely with him when you were there, has just put on Twitter that he's written to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards just now because he says Number 10 keep changing their story on this and they are still not telling the truth. What does he know that we don't?
Ooh.
Well, he was the permanent secretary. I discussed the matter with him in some detail, and the approach that I just set out was entirely pursuant to and consistent with his advice, although actually the reference to the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team was something that was very much done at my behest. First of all, because I wanted to check that we got it right, and secondly, I wanted to make sure that no one would impeach the Foreign Office approach to this in any way.
I'm looking through it now. This is an extraordinary letter which is going to dominate the news agenda today, I can tell you. The final paragraph of it, he says, I'm aware it is unusual, this is Simon MacDonald, to write to you and simultaneously publicise my letter, but I'm conscious of the duty owed to the target of an investigation, but I act out of my duty towards victims. Mr. Pincher deceived me and others in 2019. He cannot be allowed to use the confidentiality of this process 3 years ago to pursue his predatory behaviour in other contexts.
Well, I can only tell you, and I'm very careful to protect the civil service and the integrity of the disciplinary mechanisms, but that is at odds with my understanding because when I tested whether we needed or whether further action should be taken based on the independent review of the complaint that was made, which Sir Simon directed and commissioned, he was very clear with me that the proper processes had been followed and no disciplinary action was warranted. I went above and beyond that, not out of any criticism of Sir Simon, but because I wanted to just double test that we got this right as a Foreign Office, ministers, me as the Secretary of State, him as the Permanent Secretary, to the Cabinet Office Propriety and Ethics team. So I'm very confident in the decisions that we took at the time, and of course I followed Sir Simon's advice to the letter. In fact, I went beyond what he'd advised me to do.
Okay, it's not just about at the time, though, is it? What we're also talking about how Downing Street has dealt with this over the last few days, saying that the Prime Minister hadn't been aware of any specific allegations. And in this letter, he says that line from Number 10, that original line from Number 10, is not true. And even the update, the modification, is still not accurate, he says. Mr. Johnson was briefed in person about the initiation and outcome of the investigation. There was a formal complaint.
Aye.
Well, There was a complaint, but actually, in this case, and I wouldn't normally go into the detail of it, but
Don't tell Pinocchio lies.
all involved and allow the process to be conducted independently. Actually, the individual, the complainant, did not want any formal action taken against Mr. Pincher. Now, sometimes in these cases, that is the view of the person coming forward, but doesn't mean that we let matters rest there.
Sure, but
which is why I went to the Cabinet Office.
The reason we're now talking about this is that it appears that the Downing Street line over the last few days, that Boris Johnson knew about rumours but didn't really know anything about specific, is not the case. We've heard that from the BBC report. We've now got Simon McDonald saying that is not true.
Yes, and I think we should distinguish between two things. And there's of course a rumour mill around Westminster
Checkmate.
all the time, but that's not the basis on which you would judge things properly or fairly.
But this isn't a rumour.
You're snookered.
You confirmed that there was a process and that he was found to have behaved inappropriately. This isn't just rumour. We're out of the rumour. We're into specifics. Exactly what he said. And the Prime Minister, apparently, according to the senior civil servant, was briefed in person about a specific complaint.
Forgive me, you must allow me to answer the question fully on such a sensitive issue rather than constantly interrupting.
Pinocchio lies.
And that is news to me that the Prime Minister was briefed on the specific complaint that was made and then the outcome, precisely because it didn't lead to a formal disciplinary grievance process, let alone formal action. I don't know how Sir Simon would know that, but if he does know that he was briefed directly, that's news to me. And I think the distinction that is being drawn is awareness of a complaint that may have been, or an allegation that may have been made, and something that trips the wire, if you like, meets the threshold for formal disciplinary action. And there was none taken here. And indeed, that was the advice of Sir Simon in this case, and I remember it very clearly.
And if what he's saying is correct, where does that leave Boris Johnson this morning, having said all along he wasn't aware of these allegations?
Checkmate. Checkmate.
Again, I don't think that's quite right. And people are selectively quoting what Will Quint said yesterday, in that he said that he was assured Number 10 weren't aware of specific and serious.
These are embarrassing, Boris is.
These are fine distinctions, but I think the point that Number 10 have made is they were not aware of anything which had led to formal disciplinary action in terms of the formal processes that any professional organisation would adopt. And I believe that's still correct, but if it's not, then it will need to be clarified.
We look forward to the clarification. Dominic Raab.
If you like this video, please leave thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel on Sanjay Adams. But of course, we've always great by spotting the needs of many. Please subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel on Sanjay Adams. Bye.